Okay, that's it for now, and we're going to mix and mingle. And if you're watching online and you've got some time, please come down and see all this stuff. It's even better up close and personal. Talk to you later. Oh, what are we, 2:30 Provenche? 2:30 Provenche. I got it. And you don't need to come in the front door. You can both use either side entrance because there's construction work going. Everything's under construction in the city, so if you're in Winnipeg, you're aware. And right now, life is a beach outside our front door. So come in the side. See you later.
That's where simple faith begins to grow. Believing what your heart rings true, allowing hope to guide you through. Step into the mystery of your soul. That's where signs and wonders I bestow. Harnessing the power of one, the Father, Spirit, and the Son. When there is no end and the bottom's deep, I'm calling. When the path is long and the road is steep, I'm calling, calling. When there seems to be no other way, I'm calling, 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 yeah. Going to the edge of what you know. That's where simple faith begins to grow. secrets. You know my every thought. You know the things I've done. You know my struggle, my lonesome, wretched heart. You know the things I've done. It must be love. You know I try so hard to fix all the things I've done. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Ooh, only love would take me back again. When I've been caught with blood on both my hands, there's no good reason that I could understand. It must be love. God knows it must be love. God knows it must be love. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Only love would take me back again. When I've been caught with blood on both my hands, there's no good reason That's where simple faith begins to grow. Believing what your heart rings true, allowing hope to guide you through. Step into the mystery of your soul. That's where signs and wonders I bestow. Hard to see the power of one, the Father, Spirit, and the Son. When there is no end and the bottom's deep, I'm calling. When the path is long and the road is steep, I'm calling, calling. When there seems to be no other way, I'm calling, 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 yeah. Going to the edge of what you know. That's where simple faith begins to grow. out some wretched heart. You know the things I've done. It must be love. Only love would take me back again when I've been caught with blood on both my hands. There's no good reason that I could understand. It must be love. God knows it must be love. You know I'm reaching. You know I try so hard to fix all the things I've done. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Ooh. Only love would take me back again when I've been caught with blood on both my hands. There's no good reason that I could understand. It must be love. God knows it must be love. God knows it must be love. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Every mistake, every disaster. When I run away, love's running faster. Only love would take me back again when I've been caught with blood on both my hands. There's no good reason that I could understand. It must be love. God knows it must be love. God knows it must be love. God knows it must be love.
Isn't this great that me just sitting here gets your attention? And in reality, all I'm doing is sitting here so that the genius in the back there can set the cameras up right. But are we good, Alex?
Okay, welcome. My name is Shannon. I'm one of the founding members of MIYE Creatives. This is our first showing as MIYE Creatives. We were able to have a show in 2021? I think so. It was called Phoenix Garden Party at Cliff and Wilma Dirkson's, but at that time we were branding ourselves as Kaleidoscope Creatives. Since then, we've realized that we're a muddy group. And part of the name came from, in John 9, Jesus does a creative miracle where he heals a blind man by putting mud in his eyes. And to make the mud, he had to use spit. And not just like when I read it the first couple of times, like to make mud, you need a lot of saliva. So this was something that Jesus spent time building up enough saliva to make mud to put in this guy's eyes. And I would assume that as a blind beggar, that spit had not been something that he found endearing in the past. And so now that was used to, in a redemptive way to bring healing to him. And so he put mud in his eyes and then told him to go out and wash his eyes in the pool, and that's probably not something he could have done completely on his own. So I think it exemplified everything about our group. Sometimes we can't see clearly, and it's good to be surrounded by like-minded people who love you and care for you and want the best for you, and they want to draw out the best in you and help you to see more clearly, and they'll bring you to the waters and let your eyes be cleansed. And the man didn't know who Jesus was. He'd heard the name, but he'd never seen him, no pun intended. And even afterwards, when people asked him, who did this to you? And he said, well, it's Jesus. And they'd ask him more questions, started a lot of controversy. Even when it's something good, people want to find something wrong with it. And so that's what I like about art. And that's part of what this group is all about, is we create something and it opens up dialogue. And you can love or hate our art, but we can have safe conversation without being too wounded, because it's just two different perspectives of something. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to give you a little bit of background about what we've created and our process in the creation. So our first artist, I think, this afternoon, we're going to call up Paige Bueller. Paige is going to talk about one of the paintings that she gifted to our church.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Paige Bueller. Thanks for coming. It's nice to see you guys in person. I started this painting several years ago, and it keeps coming back to me because it started with a dream and me asking God, what must I do to become a mature woman of God? And He gave me a dream of these trees being rooted in the river. It was like the river came in around them, or it was like the trees were placed dead center in the river. I don't know. And so He said to me, these mature trees are the church, and they are deeply rooted in the river, which is the river of God, the flowing, live word of God, and not being able to move from it or around it. And I love the church so much. And so often now I'll see trees as a church. And so she's planted in the river, which obviously is near us. And I have her lifting up the ground. And that means she's taking authority in the land that is around her. And she's looking at the tears, the blood, and the sweat that went into this land that is happening now, the heartbreak that we're going through now. She's looking at the disappointment, and she's taking it in the name of Jesus for God's kingdom. And it's this view of downtown Winnipeg is this side of the river, West End Community Church. And I think there's a tree all around the city representing different churches. It's not about WCC being the church, of course. But I was really praying for boldness from the Lord, and knowing our authority that we have in Christ is that we impact the things that happen around us on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, political, physical, and not to give up. Not to give up. So I think that's all I can say for that. I welcome your own interpretation. I'd love to hear that. And I think I need to do this 100 more times to get really what I want it to look like. And I'm so appreciative of that, being able to do that process with my creatives, because it really is so much about the process, not the product, not trying to sell necessarily as the goal, but trying to connect with the heart of other artists and encouraging each other in our own journey with being creative, not just in art, but there's pottery, there's photography, there's writing groups. And so I'm so blessed, and thank you guys for coming. And thank you for people online too. So I would welcome Glenn to come up next.
Hey, Paige. Little itty bitty photo. If you guys can't see this good, you can come look in my booth and you can see it. And for you guys online, oh well. This is not the most exciting photo in my booth, but it is for me. We have a church where we really believe in the prophetic and enjoy the prophetic and practice the prophetic. And everybody, all of us have prophetic in us. And it's kind of fun, actually, as a church. What we do is we give prophetic words to people, but we'll put teams together, because not one person can do that. It takes a team to do that. And we'll pull people that don't prophesy, or they're not into that, and we'll pull them into there, and they start prophesying, just like it says in the Bible. It's kind of neat. And all of the artwork that you see here has some prophetic in it, and we really believe that. And a lot of the stuff we do is that's the way it's working. And if you look in 1 Corinthians, it says that not everybody has the whole word. It takes multiple to get the word. And I think in the artwork that we've done here for quite a few years now, we do this in the church every week. You do one painting, and all of a sudden there'll be 3 others that confirm that painting. And God will be speaking through them. It's kind of neat. This painting, this photo, I love taking photos. I started when I was young. My dad had a film camera, and you'd put a film in it, and you'd get 24 or 36 pictures. So you'd have to actually think about it. You'd have to stop and say, okay, I've only got 6 shots left. And what am I going to take a picture of? And there was discipline, and I love that. And then that got put away and life entered in. Now I've bought a camera and I'm starting to learn it again. And I've done that now for a few years, learning the camera again. And now it's a digital era where everybody will take 1,000 pictures, and then all of a sudden they have a good one. And there's a little bit of luck involved there. And I started getting down that path, and I had to correct myself. And so now I have a talk with God. Okay, what should I take a picture of? Why should I take a picture of that? Is it worth it to click this? And I'm actually lowering my picture count quite a bit. Now, I was taking a picture of waves. It was wonderful. Actually, it was slow motion video I was doing of waves. And while I did that, a lady came up and walked by me. And I would think she was in her late 60s, early 70s. And this was at, what's the name of this beach? The Quarry on Hecla. So she came down the stairs and walked by me, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, all by herself. And she walked up to my wife, who was behind this yellow bush here. She was tucked in behind, reading a book in a lawn chair, as she does while I take my photos, because I have one of the best wives. I tolerate her when she dances, and she tolerates me when I photograph. And it works well. So she walked right up to my wife and stood there for 5 minutes while I'm doing these videos. I did several videos while she was doing that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then she turned around and came to me and said, look at that. And then she left. And I thought, oh yeah, look. And there was this tree growing out. So I got my camera and I took a picture of that. And then I went, when we were leaving, I asked my wife, so what were you guys talking about? She says, what do you mean, you guys? Well, the lady that came to talk to you, there was no lady there. She had no idea. Now, she could have been in a zone. I don't know this. But I know that lady stood there beside my wife for a long, long time. I just think it was God pointing to this. And there's something in there, and I think that's prophetic. I don't know what it is yet. I don't have an answer. But that's the beauty of the photograph. I love taking photographs. I showed another one that I have in my booth of a landscape. I did that in the talk this morning. We're doing different ones every talk. And that one, I took the picture, and then God tapped me on the shoulder and said, did you see the eagles? And I look at the picture on the camera, and there's 2 eagles. I never knew they were there. It's kind of neat. I'd love to say that I planned that, but I did not. So that's how I do my photography now, is more of a discipline. And I actually walk and talk with God. And actually, a lot of times I'm woken up. You got to go. Where am I going? And it leads me to a photograph, which is kind of fun. And I'm going to call up, who should I call up? Andrea.
Again. Okay, so I don't know whether I should recap on anything. I think I'm just going to delve into the next thing. So just as way of introduction, I'm part of the Mud in Your Eyes Creatives group also, and it's been a huge blessing to be able to talk about art and the creative process. I also, my favorite thing is to do prophetic art. So I want to share about this picture, and this is a word that I felt the Lord gave me early in the pandemic of what He was doing in the church, that He was transforming the church. And our church, but I think this is true for all of church. And he showed me this picture of a chrysalis where you could sort of see what was being formed inside. And as I was pondering this, he gave me a whole bunch of insights into the incredible miracle of the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. And so I just want to read you this. I actually have a write-up for each of these prophetic paintings, which I left at home. But so this one, basically what I felt the Lord was showing me through this is that the raw material that the caterpillar went into the cocoon with is the same as that of the butterfly which emerges. It's the same stuff. So we do not need to necessarily import new people or resources to be changed into something new. We change from the inside of the cocoon, not through external manipulation, which is kind of interesting. The organism that goes into the cocoon is completely different from the organism that emerges. It has a different look. It's a lot more attractive. It has different mobility. It can go places where a caterpillar cannot go. It has different behavior. It flies rather than crawls. It has a different appetite. It doesn't eat leaves, it sips nectar. And this is true of us as we emerge also. In the natural, the organism that emerges from the cocoon looks the same as in the natural, the organism that emerges from the cocoon, if it does rather, then there's something went wrong, right? It has to look different. And I felt like this is something that the Lord really highlighted, that we need to come out of the pandemic looking different. Otherwise, the cocoon went wrong. The organism that emerges has shed excess weight, which now enables it to fly. And there are ways of doing things that are heavy for us and need to be dropped to enable flight. We need to evaluate what is heavy in the way we do things and shed that weight. When the butterfly emerges, its wings are small and not fully extended. It needs to sit and beat its wings carefully for some time before it is ready to fly. Our initial emergence from the pandemic cocoon may not result in immediate flight. We need to make time and room for the beating of small wings. And the butterfly, if you've ever seen a monarch emerge from the chrysalis, it has really small, weird-looking wings. And it's only in careful beating of those wings that they extend, and the life flow goes into them, and they very quickly grow into maturity. We need to make room for that beating of the small wings. And I think we're still in that place. Another thing that God revealed was during a prayer time for prodigals is that the emerging butterfly is going to be attractive to the prodigal church. Those that left, and it will come back because they'll be very attracted to this new church. And what I love about prophetic art is that it's not just a word that's given and impacting for the moment, but it's something that you can be reminded of over and over, because you look at it and it all can come flooding back. And so I believe that prophetic art is an arsenal of weaponry that God is bringing out at this time in history, where it is becoming possible in so many ways to put the pictures that we get, the way that God speaks to us, onto a canvas or into some creative form where people can see it and be reminded, and the message becomes part of us because we've been so inundated with it over and over. So I really think that it's a wonderful way for God to be speaking, and I want to be part of that. Next is Iris.
Good one, Glenn. I love it. Is it upside down? Yeah, exactly. So, hello, everyone. My name is Iris, and I am part of Mud in Your Eye Creatives. And I wanted to show you these paintings. I've already talked to a few people about them already. Going to do it that way? Can you see them both? Okay. Is that good? Oh, I think the camera is looking at this in a certain way. So, okay, so what these two paintings are is a God-given moment in time. Completely unexpected, unplanned, unprepared for. My daughter was able to come with me on Thursday and do some painting. And what my title for this is Mother, Daughter, God Moment between these two paintings. This one is my painting, this one's her painting. And from the moment that we arrived here, she said, this place is warm and welcoming and comforting, and you could feel God's presence. The music was playing in the background, and the two of us just got to paint together. Prior to arriving, we had been sharing some of the inner things that were going on in our hearts. And we actually had a lot of turmoil going on, and so it was a really good mother-daughter sharing time. And these paintings, to me, are just a representation of what was going on the inside. And even though you go through the turmoils in life and the trials and the tribulations, you know that God is with you and that God is going to see you through that moment. And when you come through that moment, just like Andrea was talking about in the transformation of that chrysalis, he changes you and he makes you into something better than what you were through the trials and the tribulations that you go through. So this will show the trials and the tribulations, but we are waiting to see what will happen after that character building is complete. Yeah. So that's it, the two of us. Yeah. And Shannon. I'm calling Shannon up now.
Okay, so we've had a bit of a tree theme going, so I will carry on with our theme. And I think that's one of the things that I've really appreciated about our group is when we first came together, it was right before the pandemic hit. And so the first year, our artwork had more of an inside the church feel to it or flavor. Cliff had done some sculptures of angels, a pandemic angel with sword, and there was just a different feel. And then after the first year, people were done with being inside, and we wanted to get outside. And that was kind of what was happening for me when I was working on this painting. So it's the same tree, but this one would have been inside the church. And stained glass windows, way back when they first started them, was a good way for the church to teach the regular folk Bible stories. So they had an illustrated thing, and everything's very controlled and cut and precise. Everything has to fit together, and that's what we want. And there's safe borders, and that's kind of life in the church. Here's the rules and expectations, and when everything's chaotic, we want that to feel safe. We want something that we can push against that will feel safe. And from inside the church, then the light would come through the windows and everything's beautiful. But then there was a point where God's calling you to come back to the garden without shame. It's going to be a lot messier when you've got all that freedom. And so that's what the second tree represented, was God calling back into the garden to walk in a different kind of intimacy with him. And I think there's both places have value. When you feel safer, when you're getting to know somebody, it's nice to be in a safe environment. When I was a little girl, I thought God was a dirty old man, because Jesus loves the little children, but God sees you all the time, everywhere. And I didn't understand why he needed to be watching me take a bath. And a part of it was because I didn't know him. I had no relationship with him. I had been well introduced to Jesus. He was okay, and he wasn't going to come into the bathroom. No one told me he was everywhere. God was everywhere. Now I'm okay if with the idea of God seeing me naked, because that's how he was created, and I understand him so differently, and there's an intimacy and a safety in his presence. So relationship is fluid, right? And so that's some of the things that I was working through in working on this painting, and maybe you'll see something different too. We have another book of photographs and poems and quotes that a friend of mine did, and I was looking through it on Thursday night, and there's a little excerpt about stained glass windows and how they sparkle and shine in the sunlight, but when it's dark out, they only show their true colors if there's a real light inside. And I think that's pretty much where we're at right now. We're letting our light shine. So I just want to thank you all for coming and allowing us to share our art and our stories. And in a few more minutes, I think we're going to reconfigure a little bit and move into more of a creative soaking atmosphere. So if you want to stay and write or paint or take a nap or ponder or just stare at a picture, you're more than welcome to do that. And I also want to thank Alex, who gave up his Saturday to be our sound guy. I want to thank all our members of Mud in Your Eye Creatives. And we forgot to mention Teresa Jensen, who was unable to make it because family first, and she had to look after a family member right now. But she's also a very integral part of our group and does a lot of paintings about the heart. So I'm sure our next show, she'll be able to tell you all about that. And also a big thank you to Winnipeg Christian Center for allowing us to present here, and for Glenn to having this creative, intuitive way to stage everything and come early. Nobody knows all the stuff that he does in the wee hours when it's still dark out. I mean, you get to see some of his pictures of bridges that he takes at 4 o'clock in the morning. But by 5, he's here setting things up and making it look like this is the way it's always been. And he does it so behind the scenes that we can almost take it for granted if we wanted to. It's kind of like the shoemaker and the elves. Here's a bunch of shoes that showed up. Isn't that wonderful? Well, there's our shoemaker. There's our shoemaker elf. Okay, and one more thing, Paige has an announcement about our next showing.
Yeah, just to let you know that on November 27th, it's a Sunday, there's going to be an art and book show, and it's called Chasing the Light. There'll be many of us there as artists showcasing our art, selling art, but also the other half of that is showcasing Cliff Dirkson's new book, Chasing the Light. And that's going to be stories from his blog that he's written about in the last while. And a bunch of other artists there, authors there with their books from Wilma's writers group. So there'll be lots of things for sale and a good place to get Christmas gifts or just come out and have fun and be inspired. There will be refreshments. So it's November 27th from 1 till 5 p.m. And that's at Park Theater, which is Maple Crest New Church, down Osborne. So if you have any more questions, let me know. Thank you very much.
I just want to say for all the people that are here, this has been not a struggle, but we need a third painting like what you did on Thursday night almost for what we did here, because we planned this a few months back, right? Quite a few months back. And wouldn't you know it, this week they dig up the front so we couldn't use the door. But that was only part of it. The other part of it was our rooftop unit failed. We came on Tuesday and it was, you could see your breath in here almost, it was cold. We all had to wear parkas to do our Tuesday night service. And so we went and got some fireplaces. That's being creative, right? And right now they're just being decorations because it's actually comfortable in here. I think as we soak, we might turn some heat up a little bit to just take that little nip off. But it was wonderful today. It really was. The atmosphere, I think, was meant to be. So thank you guys all for coming.